So a little while ago, my friend Sir Poseidon, aka Josh, aka TheLastNerd, go check out his channel, asked me if I wanted to work on a collaboration with him. And since we both like playing games together, although we don't do it often as we'd like due to time zones and work conflicts, he asked me if I wanted to build something inspired by Deep Rock Galactic. That's where this video came from. And what I want to do as well is explain a technique which I know has been around for a long time. It's been popularized by a few YouTubers. One that I've been doing inadvertently for years, just never realized I had a name or a particular technique, but something called Slapchop. Now, the basic premise of the technique is that you primer model black, like I have. You then do what's called an overbrush, which is not quite the same as a dry brush. It's heavier, you get it in more crevices, and you basically just highlight the model in a dark grey, so in this case it's Mechanica Standard Grey. From there, you then highlight up to a lighter colour, and you do it from a more topward down direction, as you'll see as we go on. But as I say, this overbrush, it's getting all the crevices, the deep dark crevices will stay back, which is kind of part of the technique. As well with dry brushing, I've discovered through colleagues and through peers that don't use a paper towel. Use a palette, like so I'm using my paint mat to get off the excess paint, because a paper towel will take out the medium from the paint, make the paint nice and chalky, which is that disadvantage of dry brushing if you use a paper towel. You can also see I'm wiping up my hand just to gauge how much paint is actually on the brush. Using an old makeup brush, fairly cheap, I just got them on Amazon. But this first step, over brushing, you just want to try and don't be rough. You know, you don't want to oversaturate it, but at the same time you also want to get good coverage, so just see what you can do with it. Now, as I say, the next step in this is to then use a lighter colour. It's up to you what you want to do. The steps usually are black or a base colour of some description that's quite dark. I just went for black, and then you go one up, which is this dark grey. And the plan was I was going to use Corax white, because it's a nice off-white colour, but it was not looking the best, shall we say. And to be quite perfectly honest with you, I couldn't be bothered to shake it up, because I don't know what it is, but the GW whites are awful. So instead I used more of a milky off-white, this Pallid Witch Flesh. Nice consistency, drawing it out in a line, and doing pretty much the exact same technique as before. Making sure the brush hasn't got any grey on it, getting in amongst the bristles, and a similar technique but not as heavy, more focused towards the top, so you just kind of want to go in a down and out fashion, capturing the top sections, the top edges and the top panels, keeping the lower ones darker, and making sure that it is catching properly. You might want to need to do it in a few sections. So you can see here, that's the movement you're going for. So down and in, and then come out. You don't want to go back up on the same stroke. You want to do the upstroke away from the model itself, so that you don't catch the underside detail. I'm going to do a little bit more here, just to make sure that it is actually catching some of the higher detail. Make sure it's definitely in the brushes, and if you need to test on something like a scrap model or your hand or something like that, I just use my hand. Anyone who knows me, my hand is usually covered in paint when I've been painting models. Now, as I say, this method of painting I've been doing for years. Hang on, let me just readjust the model here. I felt it was a bit wobbly, which is something you want to try and avoid, so it doesn't move around too much. Anyways, this technique I've been doing for years, inadvertently, although I do it a slight variation rather than doing the way that I'm going to show you today. I do the Slapchop with the final colours in mind. These makeup brushes, honestly, they're really good. Cheap from Amazon, pack of, I think it was 10 or 12, and you get different sizes, different softnesses, different types. So I'm going to go for a smaller one, which is nice and clean, which I think is nice and clean anyways. Taking the same white, getting most of it off, but getting some in the bristles so it doesn't dry out. Again, testing on my hand to make sure it's alright, and going in and really targeting the top edges, especially on the helmet, the shoulder, the gun, the little backpack thing, and making sure that the details are being caught there, where the bigger one couldn't do. Now, as I say, this is a challenge collaboration that's been inspired by me and Josh playing Deep Rock Galactic, and I generally play this character, which at this point in time I can't remember what it's called, the actual skin. I'll put it on screen. But yeah, this is what I wanted to try and go for. So the colour scheme itself generally is like the undercloth is a kind of greenish, almost like a greenish camo to be honest, with a kind of black metallic armour plating and glowing bits. Now, the bit I haven't shown is at the back of it, rather than being neon green glowing bits, it's neon orange, which I'll put in as well. Now, as I say, with the brushwork, the little one lets you get a bit closer in, get a bit more details, and all you're really trying to do is just catch the upper bits. So think of it like zenithal highlighting, but without the airbrush or the spray can to do it. And just basically just work your way around the model, making sure that everything is caught as you want it to be. And yeah, once you're happy with it, you're ready to move on to the next step. And I think, to be perfectly honest, you could probably leave the model there if you wanted to, if you want like a nice quick paint job. But as I say, we're going to go through the Slapchop method, which I've seen a few artists do, and I'll show you how I do it. But I say the actual technique of Slapchop is new to me. The variation that I do is something I do on all my models, but I'll show you that one in another video. So the idea behind Slapchop is that you get the model to this stage where you have a nice gradient, ranging from black to grey to a, well, let's call it white, off-white basically. And then you go around picking the individual parts and colouring them in with a contrast paint. This is the idea. In the past, I guess it would have been shades or really watered down, just normal acrylics. Make sure it's nice and mixed. I've got a vortex mixer off on the side, but go in with it with a reasonably sized brush. Off to the side you can't see I've got a wet palette, which I'm using just to water it down a little bit. But yeah, as I say, it's just very much a case of colour by numbers, or picking a section and just go for it. Always remember, see the pots when you're not using them, because you will knock them down like I did the model. But yeah, all you're going to do is just go through, let me get it in focus, there we go, and pick anywhere that that needs to be the colour it needs to be. So like I say, the undercloth is specifically green. I'm going to pick that in, sorry for the shakes. And the idea is that the transparent nature of the contrast and the staining nature of the contrast is that the transparency will allow the under shading, the black to white, to show through, while the staining will actually colour the I guess it's grayscale gradient to be whatever colour you want to be. So in this case, green. And you just move around the model as you see fit and see where you go from there. So this is the green complete. I did the legs, a tiny little bit on the torso that you can see, and the feet, sorry, the hands. For the armor panels though, because they are a kind of black metallic, and something about Deep Rock Galactic, the art style, it's like there's no soft edges, there's no soft curvature to anything. It's all hard edges, as you can see in the reference. Everything's kind of got a specific level of, I guess, lightness to it, but the panels themselves, they're a black metallic. So what I did is I mixed a little bit of the Black Templar with a little bit of the Iron Hand steel. Pretty much a kind of a 1:4 Iron Hands to Black Templar, and created it again on the wet palette, and this is the result. So thin enough that the undershading can still come through, but dark enough that it stains it and gives that metallic sheen to it. So the next thing to do would be to, using the same colours in a different ratio, I think I did a 1:1, but watered down, reinforcing some of the metallic, panels, making sure that the kind of the metalness of it comes back through and shines out. Iron Warrior, sorry, the metallic paint. And all you're basically doing is just emphasising the shininess of the metal that it has. If you've ever played the game, you'll know exactly what I mean about the need for metal to look like metal, basically. So yeah, just pick any areas that you want to kind of stand out. I'm going to pick the faceplate, and I'm going to pick some of the bigger, kind of broader, flatter panels to do as well. So I say the faceplate, we're going to do a little bit on the chest, a little bit on the I don't know what part of the armour you call it, the stomach bit, the bit on the thighs, and some of the shoulder panels and the back panel as well. The kind of beauty of this technique, I guess, is that because the paints that you're using over the undershading are so thin, that the pre-shading that you've done will always come through. I mean, obviously if you put on loads and loads of layers, the pre-shading is going to be more and more diminished, but if you're conservative about it and doing it in the right order, you can ensure that the pre-shading will always be seen through it. You don't have to be as slapdash as I am. I guess it's a Slapchop, as it were. I only did one layer. Probably not the best job, but it looks alright. If you hold it from the 3 feet rule, it looks fine. Now, I'm going to go back and do a slightly watered down Black Templar contrast just by itself. Just to do as a kind of a recess shade. Mostly just on the faceplate, but you can go back and do it on some of the ribs of the armor panels as well. Just purely because some of the pre-shading has been lost by doing that step, just to reinforce that this is actually a crevice and you want it to be a little bit darker. What you can do as well is what I'm doing there, just gets paint off your brush and feather it out, and try not to do too much because you don't want it to be too contrasty. So I say you're going to do on the faceplate, you're just going to pick your battles really. I'm going to do a little bit under the ribs there. Just have a look around the model to make sure that you haven't overdone it, and yeah, I forgot to cap that, so just I didn't knock it over. So that's how it looks with the I guess the recess shade of the Black Templar. The contrast paints can be used as a recess shade. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go around and do all the leather bits. Now I realise on the reference there is no leather. There is leather in game, but not on this specific reference. But I think personally, if I see anything like a gun holster or a belt, it always registers as leather to me. So using a little bit of snakebite leather, going on the wet palette, a little bit watered down. Go around and choose which bits you want to be leather. So I say just the belt. Doesn't really matter if you get it on bits that you don't want to be leather, because for me specifically, although this is the Slapchop method, I'm going to go over some bits and do just more of a, I guess you'd call it, traditional paint method. So the little rivets on the belts, this gun holster are going to be actual metallic metal paints. So yeah, or you just pick out which ones you want to be. Now I think it looks really good. I did go back and do 2 coats because I thought the first one was a little bit too light. It was only just the belt and the gun holster that was the leather paint though. Now next, for me, I really wanted to make sure that the glowing bits stood out. So you can see I've got a really nice fine brush there. Can't remember where I got that one actually. I'll have to see if I remember and post it on my Instagram. But it's a really nice synthetic fibre brush. The day before, I'd went out and got some of this X2 Tamiya colour, because honestly, I couldn't, for the life of me, I can't find a good white paint, so I want to see if this works. And spoilers, it works really well. It does stink a little bit though, so make sure you've got the window open. But basically, what you're going to do is get a little bit on your brush. You may want to put it on a palette if you want to. Try and thin it down. Just test the consistency. That's quite literally the first time I've ever used it. And although the next bit it is a little bit hard to record and it's going to look very messy, but in essence it's just a case of getting the white paint to the right consistency, get it in the crevices as best you can. Doesn't really matter if you overspill a little bit because it just adds to the effect. So just testing consistency of the paint again and line your brush up as best you can. So I'm going to paint this little, I guess it's a light on the front of his chest, get in the crevices here, because it does dry quite quickly though, that's why I found. So I say get it in the crevices. It was very difficult to record this because obviously the camera's in the way and I can't quite see what I'm doing. Every time that there was a take or a cut in the take, I was bringing it right up to my face so I could actually see what I was doing. But just be as neat as you can. Brace your hand as best you can on your desk or your table or whatever, and work around like that. So yeah, this white, I'm still going to play around with it a bit more. I think it's more of an airbrush paint, but I think that kind of lends to the nice kind of seeking the recesses, I guess it is. You can see how shaky I am there, so if you do make any mistakes, I wouldn't worry about it too much. So yeah, I just went around the model, anywhere that I thought should be glowing, on the back or the front. Remember, the back is going to be orange, the front is going to be green. Got this treatment. So next, I'm just going to go back with the metallic paints and just tidy up some of the areas, and also add in the actual true metallic parts of the gun, the little carabiner things, I think they're called, on his belt, all the little rivets and kind of pocket strap things, the edge of the axe. Again, just put it on your palette, make sure it's nicely watered down so you don't leave any brush marks, and just find anywhere that you think needs to be metallic and paint it in. There's no real set guide to it, it's just whatever you want it to be. So as I say, I just did the again, sorry for the shakes. I just put it in as the axe edge. There it goes, back in focus. This, I think they're called carabiners. If you know, tell me in the comments, because I generally can't remember what they're called. I think it's something like that anyways. The belt buckle, all of these tiny little, I don't know what they are, like tubes or straps that are on the legs, the edges of the knee pads, the gun, and I went ahead and highlighted some of these little kind of rivet things that were on the gun holsters. So again, it's entirely up to you how and where you want to do it, how much or how little. Also, how I went ahead and did the feet, because I felt the feet were basically just plain dark and not very interesting. Doesn't matter if you make any mistakes either, because we can always go back and fix it. Again, we're going to go back to the Black Templar, and we're going to use that as a reset shade just to fix any teeny tiny mistakes we've done, or to break the boundary. So here, with the axe, it kind of just meets the rest of the axe with no kind of break in the line, so just to make it feel a bit more real, I guess. I don't know what the right word would be for it, but it makes it look better, makes it look nicer. And just, yeah, go around the model, find where you want it to be. So I say there's a tiny, you can see there, just under the knee pad, tiny little mistake there. That Black Templar will fix that, because it will dull down the metallic and it will stain it so it doesn't see, you can't see there anymore. And after you've done that, you can see it's still a little bit wet on the gun. It kind of highlights it, and it provides the reset shade, which I think actually I might start to use these as an actual proper reset shade. Anyways, moving on to the next bit, we're going to emphasize the glow, which I've been talking about the entire video. Basically, we're going to use the what's this one called again? Hang on until I stop shaking it. Warp Fiend Glow, I think it was. Or something like that. Anyways, we're going to use that, and we're going to water that down a little bit and get it into the recesses as best you can. Now, what I decided to do for the actual faceplate is I just did an all over one, because in game you have a shield. So for me, that kind of felt like that should be part of the HUD of the game and should be represented on the faceplate of the model. Now, it looks really, really strong, and it is, and between takes I decided to rub off most of that and make it just more around the edges in the crevices themselves. But basically, anywhere where you put the white and you want a glow effect, you're going to put it in. So on the lenses, on the tiny little dots and nodules for that. And I say, if you don't like it, if it's still wet, just give it a little rub and it'll come off. That's all you need to do. Did exactly the same thing for the back, which was for the orange parts. If you want to emphasize the glow a little bit more, you put in a little bit more of the white, so in this case it was the X2 Tamiya. Just very lightly dab it onto what would be the center of the light, and it does make it look like it's glowing from that internal source. But yeah, as I say, just go around. Anything on the back will be orange, so it's that Glyphhound orange. It's exactly the same process. Obviously for this specific model, the orange parts, there's no overspill glow, so it's just in the crevices, and it's very much a case of you're almost like you're flooding the crevice itself. If you go over, obviously you can just wipe it off. It's not too big of an issue. But anywhere where there's white, just pop it in, and as it dries, the paint will settle into the crevice and create a fairly convincing glow effect, I think. It probably needs to be worked on a bit more. It's been a while since I've done one properly, but I think it looks alright. And just work around and see basically what you think. Now, for the base, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to show you the process of that, purely because my bases are done all the same. It's just prime black, brown, wash, then dry brush brown on top of it, and that's pretty much exactly the same. Just trying to figure out how I want it to look, so yeah, that's it. The model itself, when it's done, looks something like this, and let me think, it was about 7 hours I worked on this, but that's only because I was recording. The whole process itself I think took maybe 30 minutes, which that's the beauty of Slapchop, you can get it done very quickly. If you want though, as I say, it is a collaboration between myself and TheLastNerd, aka Josh, aka Poseidon, as I know him on Discord. Definitely go check out his video. His videos also contain the live reaction between myself and him, where we show each other our models, because we know that we're working on this, but we've not shown each other what we're doing yet. So yeah, go check out his video for that, and I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.